Can you tell me about your future and what will you do?
I think in the future, because neo-paganism and witchcraft is such a new religious system, a new manifestation of people's spirituality, I think in the future that we need to advance the theology of witchcraft. People are finding all sorts of practical problems now. For example, having to cope with larger groups of people, having to cope with more publicity, having to cope with having a stable priesthood to administer rites, and whether witches do want such a stable priesthood and a structure. Because witches tend to be very individualistic, and as such they may not want to acknowledge a formal priesthood, but nonetheless priesthoods serve functions. And I think witchcraft has a very challenging time ahead of it to adjust itself as a new religion in the modern world. For myself, for the Faraway Centre, we believe we have a role in that, in really advancing thinking and practice, and more importantly living a magical life, because this system has to be lived. It really has to be lived.
How do you find living a magical life?
I think magical life is one that is lived awake, and I think that magical systems, spells, divination, ritual, they teach us to understand that the world as it's presented to us is not how it appears to be. And therefore we engage in a process of earnest inquiry into the universe, and we discover things about ourselves, and we discover things about our relationship to the universe itself and to other people. And I think that's at the heart of all we do as human beings. And I think a non-magical lifestyle is one where we get too forgetful of our soul. It's almost as if we're in a room full of toys and we don't realise that there's a fire burning because we're playing with the toys. And as a society we can see some of the issues that will lead us to, that we become separate from ourselves, we become divorced from our own soul, from our own meaning. And it's enjoyable to play with the toys, but sometimes we need to remember and lose the forgetfulness of the soul and change our mind in a spiritual way. And I believe that a magical lifestyle is exactly that.
And magic itself, do you think with magic you can make another person love another one?
Okay, I think with magic that magic is defined as the art and science of causing change to occur in conformity with your will. But will is an interesting thing, because whether we like it or not, our will is already in motion all of the time, and so is everyone else's. Aleister Crowley defined every man and every woman as being a star with their own orbits. And trying to change another star's orbit is a very, very difficult thing indeed, and a very dangerous thing, because it has a certain, if you'll pardon the pun, a certain gravity to it. And therefore it's a lot easier to perform magic to assist your own direction. Once you are sure of where you're going to go and use everything that you have, whether it's magic or more mundane ways of going about it, if they're aligned together, both the ritual and the activities that you're engaged in, that's when true magic happens, when synchronicity happens, when you just happen to meet someone the following day who offers you the job that you were interested in, which then leads to something else. And I think magic doesn't work for people when they're not sure of where they want to go, and when they're not ready to accept some of the consequences of things that they think they want. So they do a magical ritual to get something, but it doesn't work, because really some of the consequences of it working, they wouldn't have been able to have lived with or accept. So there's a lot of self-knowledge required in order to achieve the perfect act of magic.
What has magic, the modern witchcraft, to do with the old Celtic traditions? What has modern witchcraft to do with the old Celtic traditions, Celtic traditions?
Okay, I think there's been a lot of revival of old Celtic traditions, and Gerald Gardner, when he developed his concept of witchcraft, used his understanding of old Celtic traditions to weave into the sort of witchcraft practice. But things like Druidism, for example, in some cases it leans into a form of Celtic Christianity that is very much unlike witchcraft. So again, we have to be a little bit careful in which traditions we both say we're a part of and what we have borrowed from other traditions, which, like voodoo and Santeria, borrow from the Catholic faith, from the modern media, so you get very interesting altars. Witchcraft has done a little bit of the same, so it is a bit of a synthetic religion.
Okay, thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you for your time.
Okay.